In my last video on sacred geometry, I talked about what it is and why it is important. I'm going to talk in this video about the broader applications of sacred geometry in terms of being an operative mechanism for consciousness and the universe. This includes, but is far from limited to, relationships between the holographic universe, the Merkaba, which is the shape of both the star tetrahedron and the human light body, and vortex-based mathematics. My name is Michelle Gibson. I'm going to start with general information about holography. Holography, as we know it, is a photographic technique that records the light scattered from an object and then presents it in a way that appears three-dimensional. To create a holograph, you need an object or person that you want to record, a laser beam to be shined upon the object, and the recording medium with the proper materials needed to help clarify the image, and a clear environment to enable the light beams to intersect. A laser beam is split into two identical beams and redirected by the use of mirrors. One of the split beams, the illumination beam or object beam, is directed at the object. Some of the light is reflected off the object onto the recording medium. The second beam, known as the reference beam, is directed onto the recording medium. This way, it doesn't conflict with any imagery that comes from the object beam and coordinates with it to create a more precise image in the holograph location. The two beams intersect and interfere with each other. The interference pattern is what is imprinted on the recording medium to recreate a virtual image for our eyes to see. The recording medium, where the lights converge, can be made up of various materials. One of the most commonly used recording mediums with holograph creation is photographic film with an added amount of light-reactive grains. This enables the resolution to be higher for the two beams, making the image look much more realistic than using only the silver halide material in the photographic film. Holograms are commonly found nowadays on things like stickers and on credit cards as security features, as well as more complex things like biomedical applications and used for military applications. Next, I'm going to delve into the spiritual meaning of a hologram. The word hologram is derived from the ancient Greek words holos, meaning whole, and gramma, meaning writing or message. In holograms, complex messages are recorded holistically as multidimensional images that are emitted by the sender of the message. This kind of recording corresponds to our brain's holistic analog and multidimensional way of recording information. While this concept is not mainstream in the scientific community, the concept of a holographic brain and of holographic consciousness has been put out there by some scientists for consideration. Here is a graphic showing how the holographic consciousness and brain might work that is very similar to the holographic model I showed previously of the photographic technique for creating a holograph. Similar to the human brain's neuronal networks, in a hologram each bit of information is connected to others as well. Now I'm going to talk about morphogenetic fields and mass consciousness shifts. First, morphogenetic fields. Our brain, like a hologram, doesn't record individual digitalized data, but rather complex wave fields that are able to resonate and interact with other wave fields, such as the morphogenetic fields of superordinate consciousness. Morphogenetic fields are the non-physical blueprints that give birth to forms. They are equivalent to an electromagnetic field that carry information, not energy, and are available throughout time and space without any loss of intensity after they have been created. Morphogenetic fields are created by the patterns of physical forms. They help guide the formation of later similar systems, where a newly forming system tunes into a previous system by having a seed that resonates with a similar seed in the earlier form. Morphogenetic fields can be used to describe how the human consciousness is shared. Morphogenetic fields therefore play an important part in the idea that humanity at one point in time will go through a dramatic collective shift in consciousness. I believe we are living in that time now. A shift that will happen when the critical mass for a shift is reached, or in other words, when a certain number of spiritually awakened individuals are reached. Dr. David Hawkins wrote a book called Power versus Force, in which he defined a range of values that correspond to levels of consciousness, which include well-recognized attitudes and emotions, which he then incorporated into the map of consciousness. He postulated that emotions are actually levels of energy, one greater than the other. The lower half of the scale can be thought of as force emotions, like struggle, and the upper half of the scale as emotions of true power, like the ability to act creatively. He also postulates that with each progressive rise in the level of consciousness, the frequency or vibration of collective energy increases as a whole. Thus, people living in the energy of higher consciousness radiate a beneficial and healing effect on the world. He said that each person functioning in higher emotions of consciousness raises the collective consciousness as a whole in such a manner that not every human needs to be functioning at this level for this collective shift in consciousness to take place. A companion concept to what Dr. Hawkins writes about is what is known as the 100th monkey effect. This is the concept that once a critical number of individuals copy a behavior or follow an idea, it will be taken on by all en masse automatically. It is based on the results of a study of macaque monkeys done by Japanese scientists starting in 1952. The scientists left food such as sweet potatoes in open areas for macaques on islands like Japan's Koshima Island. As a result of this, several monkeys developed innovative forms of behavior. By 1953, one of the macaques discovered that sand and grit could be removed from the sweet potatoes by washing them in water. Between 1953 and 1958, the potato washing habit spread gradually, but then by 1958, a critical number of macaques had learned the behavior, and all of them on the island had copied the behavior, and macaques on other Japanese islands as well. Next, I'm going to talk about quantum mechanics. This is quantum mechanics in a nutshell. Quantum mechanics is a branch of physics relating to the very small or quantum level of matter. Many of the equations of classical mechanics, which describe how things move at everyday sizes and speeds, cease to be useful at the quantum level. In quantum mechanics, the wave-particle duality is the concept that every quantum entity may be described as either a particle or a wave, like as seen in this description of quantum consciousness. In other words, a given kind of quantum object will exhibit sometimes wave, sometimes particle characteristics in respectively different physical settings. Quantum entanglement occurs when particles that are entangled remain connected, so that actions performed on one affect the other, even when separated by a great distance. Albert Einstein described it as spooky action at a distance. For example, a laser beam can be fired through a certain type of crystal and cause individual protons to be split into pairs of entangled photons. Quantum entanglement essentially means that joint quantum systems can't be described in terms of descriptions that are just local. Now I'm going to introduce concepts of locality versus non-locality. In physics, the principle of locality states that an object is directly influenced only by its immediate surroundings. Locality is a key axiom of Einstein's relativistic quantum field theory, where it is essential to causality that effects do not propagate faster than the speed of light. In theoretical physics, non-locality refers to experimentally verified phenomena for which the measurement statistics of a joint quantum system that aren't able to be interpreted in terms of the principle of locality. Quantum non-locality is a property of the universe that is independent of our description of nature. It means that faraway objects can influence one another instantaneously, faster than the speed of light, and there are implications of superconductivity within non-local effects. Superconductivity is defined as the phenomenon of current flows with zero electrical resistance, shown by certain substances at temperatures approaching absolute zero. Central to non-locality is the concept of time that past, present, and future exist simultaneously. We are taught that in October of 1582, the Gregorian calendar was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII for the given reason of correcting the Julian calendar on stopping the drift of the calendar with respect to the equinoxes, and included the addition of leap years. It took 300 years to implement the calendar in the West, and nowadays used in non-Western countries for civil purposes. Indigenous calendrical systems like the Mayan calendar were involved with the harmonization and synchronization of human beings with natural cycles of time, and the evolution of consciousness. I think the Gregorian calendar was introduced in order to manipulate our perception of time as linear instead of humanity being tuned in to natural cycles of time. Now I would like to talk about toroidal fields and the holographic universe as a viable relationship. From the previous video on sacred geometry, what it is and why it is important, there are two stages from human embryonic development that I would like to bring forward. The first is a division of the embryo that yields 8 cells and a star tetrahedron, which is also a cube. The location of these 8 cells is in the geometrical center of the body at the perineum and do not die while we are alive. These 8 cells are also the source and center of the sacred geometric fields of the human light body. The sacred geometric shape found within the human light body is the star tetrahedron in the form of the Merkaba. The light body is the human energy field body or energy aura body that projects our consciousness through a holographic template that generates our physical experience within this material reality and maintains our direct connection and communication with our higher self, the Godhead or Source. It is comprised of multiple interconnected layers of electromagnetic fields of energy that extend all around the physical body. Aura photography is made possible by a technique called Kirlian photography, developed by Semyon Davidovich Kirlian in 1939. In the previous video, I also mentioned that as the human embryo develops, it starts to become hollow and return to the shape of a sphere. The North Pole begins to connect to the South Pole, forming a hollow tube in the middle and curling into a torus. The torus is a core-level sacred geometry form and consists of a central axis with a vortex at both ends and a surrounding coherent field. The torus facilitates a process by which all energy is perpetually cycling up, down, and around between spirit and matter. Our energy bodies contain heart and brain toroidal fields, of which the heart is by far the stronger of the two. Our toroidal fields are shaped like that of the Earth and the universe. More on this to come shortly. I learned about the holographic universe primarily from Greg Braden's work, and also from Drunvalo Melchizedek's work. Drunvalo brought sacred geometry, among other important information being discussed in this video, back into the collective awareness starting in the mid to late 1970s. It was from Drunvalo's work that I learned about sacred geometry around 2007 and the existence of Earth grids in 2010. I learned about Marco Rodin's work from Drunvalo in a 2015 workshop. Marco Rodin is the inventor of the torus-shaped Rodin coil and the originator of Vortex-Based Mathematics. Marco Rodin studied Baha'i scriptures, and from that unlocked the key to Vortex-Based Mathematics. Baha'i scriptures and other ancient texts spoke of 9 as the most omnipotent number. Vortex-based mathematics is a system of number theory he developed based on the idea that repeating numbers reveal a fundamental mathematical structure underlying the universe. Here's an overview of the main ideas. Vortex-based mathematics starts with a process called digital root or digital summing, where you repeatedly add the digits of a number until a single digit remains. When you repeatedly double numbers and reduce them to their original roots, it creates the repeating cycle of 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. The numbers 3, 6, 9 behave differently. 3 doubles to 6, 6 doubles to 12, whose digital root is 3. 9 always remains 9 under digit summing. These numbers are arranged in a circle and referred to as a vortex because the pattern resembles a swirling vortex. Vortex math suggests the numbers are vibrational energy and the patterns they form are reflective of how energy flows in the universe. Marco Rodin realized what he was given had to do with electricity and superconductivity. He demonstrated that a toroidal coil could increase electricity. The Rodin coil's benefits include enhanced magnetic field coherence and reduced electrical resistance. Next, I'm going to talk about the electric universe. The electric universe theory generally states that electricity is the engine behind a long list of natural and astrophysical spectacles, and supports the idea that electricity powers the sun and the stars as well as us, and that cosmic occurrences are electrical in nature. The Dogon, who live in the country of Mali in northern Africa, have a very sophisticated spiritual, astronomical, and calendrical system, as well as extensive anatomical and physiological knowledge. They are best known for the accurate knowledge they possess about the Sirius star system. The Dogon perform elaborate ceremonies with masks, headdresses, and dance. Compare the Dogon headdresses in this ceremony with the flag of the Tuareg people, who also live in this part of West Africa. With the well-documented laboratory electric discharge form of plasma on the left, next to a form called the stickman or squatter man that is found in rock art worldwide on the right. David Lapointe's work on primer fields has been extensively tested by physicists in laboratory vacuum chambers and shows that every component of matter has a double toroidal-shaped magnetic field that radiates from its core and which forms the same stickman shape. The bolt shapes are magnetic fields emanating from the middle fields of the torus shape. Next, I'm going to talk about what are called Birkeland currents. The issue with the speed of light as the primary measurement mechanism of the universe was that modern science saw no way to go faster than the speed of light in deep space. Electricity is revealing a new and different side. It moves through deep space differently than once thought. With the discovery of Birkeland currents, named after Christian Birkeland, a Norwegian scientist who produced one of the first laboratory models of the Earth's aurora in the early 1900s, another mechanism was identified for how the universe operates. Birkeland died under mysterious circumstances in Tokyo at the age of 49 in 1917. Birkeland currents are defined as currents that flow along geomagnetic field lines connecting the Earth's magnetosphere to the Earth's high-latitude ionosphere. The idea of the plasma universe goes hand in hand with the electric universe. It is the belief of some scientists that plasma makes up nearly 100% of the interplanetary, interstellar, and intergalactic medium, including the Earth's ionosphere, playing a much more significant role in the universe than is generally accepted. Hans Alfvén, Swedish electrical engineer, plasma physicist, and winner of the 1970 Nobel Prize in Physics for his work on magnetohydrodynamics, or MHD, was inspired by Christian Birkeland's work on reproducing the aurora in the laboratory. Alfvén postulated in 1937 that if plasma pervaded the universe, then it could carry electric currents that could generate a galactic magnetic field. Birkeland currents are much faster than light. Time and distance are not part of the equation. Birkeland currents are electrical, but have a relationship to gravity. Once connected to gravity, it is connected to everything, everywhere, in zero time. Human beings have a very sophisticated electrical system in our bodies, running huge amounts of electricity through it, from which the magnetic field is created. The human body is an electrical coil. The heartbeat is creating powerful electrical currents, which are connected to the gravitational field, producing the same biomagnetic field around the human body that you see around the Earth. Is it possible the universe is a living being that can communicate with all parts of itself instantaneously? Knowing about Birkeland currents and the plasma fields in the microcosm of biological life and macrocosm of space, and how to expand Merkaba fields are important things to understand on the journey of human evolution into higher consciousness. Ancient teachings of spirituality speak to this interconnectedness of all life. There are three things that I can look back on as being instrumental in what led me down the path of becoming an alternative history researcher, blogger, and YouTube content creator starting in 2018. Those three things were first learning about sacred geometry, then learning about ley lines, then learning about the Moors. This work was not something that I had ever planned to do or even envisioned for myself. And if you told me that I was going to do this earlier in my life, I would have responded by saying that you were out of your mind, and that was never going to happen. But the universe had other plans for me. I realized the significance of the information that I had received over the course of living my life sometime around 2016, and found out to my surprise that I had all the skill sets I needed to do this work. It took me about 2 years for things to come together for me to start my own research and blog, which I then turned into videos for YouTube. I lived in Fairbanks, Alaska with my husband from 1994 to 1999, and none of this was even a thought in my head then, but apparently I was laying the foundation for doing this work later in my life when the time was right. My husband died in 2001 from complications arising from Agent Orange exposure in Vietnam, and I went through a whole host of difficult life experiences, what I would call a dark night of the soul, and what Greg Braden says in his book, The Divine Matrix, that you don't have until you have all the tools needed for mastery. I can't speak for others, but I can certainly say that this was true for me. I feel like all my life experiences, both good and very difficult, got me on the path that I was meant to be on, and the universe has supported me in incredible ways to be on this path ever since. I reconnected with some old friends there when I moved back to Fairbanks in 2006, and it was through them that I first learned about Drunvalo Melchizedek's work and attended the Flower of Life workshop with my friends in 2007. Subsequently, I became very familiar with Drunvalo's work between 2007 and 2012. During the years I was living in Fairbanks between 2006 and 2012, I started receiving many other big puzzle pieces from different sources about a lost advanced civilization missing from our collective awareness. One of those sources was megalithomania conferences, which I started watching on YouTube in 2011. It was here that I started learning about the fantastic work of Earth Energy and Earth Mysteries researchers, uncovering ley lines through dowsing, and how the ancient places they were looking at lined up perfectly, geometrically, and astronomically. I lived in Fairbanks until July of 2012, when I moved to Oklahoma to help my brother with my mom. In Oklahoma City, I met a Moorish American man named Osiris in 2013, and it was through Osiris that I started learning about the Moors, about whom I knew nothing prior to meeting him. Then a friend of mine in Oklahoma City, who I used to travel with to see ancient sites around Oklahoma when I was first starting to wake up to all of this, gave me a world map that I pinned to a bulletin board next to my kitchen table. When I was eating, I started to notice cities lining up in lines in North America. It was from that finding that I discovered the shape of a star tetrahedron in 2016 by connecting cities and places in North America. By this time, I knew about ley lines and that the ancients were very precise in laying out their civilization. So I wrote down cities and places that were connecting in circular or linear fashion and wrote them down on spreadsheets. And I looked at countless images and watched hours and hours of drone videos, and I saw the same signature and hand of design from ancient to modern all over the earth. This was the start of my original research on ley lines, which I believe were laid out in a flower of life pattern, and my research on ley lines has taken me places I could never have imagined. Everyone has their own reasons for doing this kind of work, and I wanted to share my experiential, intuitive, and synchronistic story on how I got here. Everything that I have been telling you about has resulted from incredible synchronicities which brought me along this path, which would not have happened any other way. After 8 years of doing this research, it is my opinion that up until relatively recently, we were on the very positive and advanced human timeline of the ancient Moorish civilization, and the true history of Earth and humanity was nothing like what we've been taught. The single eye at the top of the pyramid in the Great Seal of the Moors represents reconnecting with our higher selves, and not the all-seeing eye of the Bavarian Order of the Illuminati and Big Brother that it has come to be associated with. Symbols were co-opted from the original meanings, and the meaning of the symbols applied in a different context. I believe beings with a negative agenda devised a complicated plan to knock humanity off the positive Moorish timeline of higher consciousness. In an interdimensional war, in order to control humanity, using humans as their tools against the Creator and creation. We have Team Light on one side, who along with the ancient advanced human civilization of Earth, were co-creating the fullest expression of human potential there ever was on Earth. Then we have Team Dark on the other side, comprised of fallen angels and other beings with a negative agenda towards humanity who have been interfering egregiously on Earth. What was Team Dark to do? They were jealous of humanity, greedy, and hungry for power. They wanted to rule over it all, take the wealth for themselves, and control the destiny of humanity for their own benefit. But the problem is, in a free will zone like Earth, the human beings who live here have to give their consent to choose whether to follow the light or the dark. The negative beings behind all of this wanted to set up a new God as Lord of this world, and to persuade enough of humanity to voluntarily accept their God over the Creator of the universe. The only way they can accomplish this acceptance, however, is by outright lies, deception, and duplicity, because if people knew the true agenda of these controllers, the majority of humanity would never ever accept this. The hiding of this ancient advanced civilization in plain sight was accomplished by shaping the false narrative, educating us in it, and reinforcing it with images coming from Hollywood, literature, art. It's not supposed to be there, so we don't see it. We don't even think it. Yet the existing infrastructure on the Earth was incredibly similar in diverse places. Here are a few of countless examples of massive and perfectly geometrically aligned masonry infrastructure. The Fort de la Bastille at Grenoble in southern France. Fort Jefferson on Dry Tortugas State Park west of Key West in the Florida Keys, only accessible by ferry or boat, and the largest brick masonry structure with 16 million bricks in the United States, said to have been built between 1845 and 1861. The Cisternerne, or the cisterns in Copenhagen, Denmark, and the Basilica Cistern, the largest of several hundred ancient cisterns that lie beneath Istanbul, Turkey. So how were we put and kept asleep? This is a multi-layered subject, but the intentional creation and promotion of addictions and distractions was a big part of it. Why on earth would we be kept addicted and distracted? There are several reasons, but the main reason is the negative beings don't want us to know who we really are and why we are here. The parasitic and multidimensionally aware beings behind all of this want us to believe that suffering, sickness, misery, destruction, and death was and is our normal state of being, and not question what we've been taught about who we are. They are the only ones who benefit because they energetically feed on humanity's negative emotional states. Additionally, they have manipulated human beings to become the perpetrators of negativity and depravity against fellow human beings. Horrific crimes against and abuse of humanity has taken place at unimaginable levels because it has been deeply hidden by those behind it, who fear the great awakening of humanity. By and large, we have been kept stuck in our lower chakras by a cruel and manipulative system imposed on us by these parasitic beings that harvest our energy and that has inverted the natural order and geometries for their own purposes, and a whole new culture was created to control us through addictions, distractions, and money. Those that heretofore have been in control of the world in which we live deviously figured out a way to keep us asleep by this new culture they created, and they have been getting filthy rich at our expense, because we've been paying for our own poisoning with our addictions, paying for our own mind control programming with distractions, and keeping us in consumerism mode to enrich corporate interests, and ultimately financing our own destruction. They have always feared the great awakening of humanity, and thus they threw everything at us they could to prevent it from happening and keep us asleep so we would never know what hit us. I have outlined a model in this video to show how the universe can be considered a living being that can communicate with itself. And not only are we all intrinsically a part of that being, we are all that same being. The mechanisms are all the same. It goes back to sacred geometry and its many applications, and can explain who we are, how we got here, why we are here, and where we are going in the universal scheme of things.